Joining me now is Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont and member of the Senate Budget Committee. Senator Sanders, they've been trying this for decades. Well, as I just said, I think they're on the doorstep. I think they're real close to knocking out Medicare and Medicaid. My top question, the most important question today, how are you going to stop that?
Well, we've got to get the American people to stand up and say it is absolutely immoral, it is insane that we give tax breaks to the very richest people in this country who today are doing phenomenally well, and then we sock it to the middle class and working families who are seeing a decline in their standard of living. This is Robin Hood in reverse. Cenk, this year, some 45,000 Americans are going to die because they don't get to a doctor on time. If you block grant Medicaid, if you voucherize Medicare, that number is going to soar. So what you are talking about is a life and death issue for millions of the American people. What I have been disturbed about in terms of the whole budget debate, whether it's the continuing resolution or fiscal year 12, is that we have not talked about enough is the need to bring revenue into the picture and to say we are not going to extend Bush's tax breaks for the very richest people. What we need is a surtax on millionaires. Last week we announced that there were 10 corporations, 10 of the largest corporations in this country who not only paid nothing in taxes, they got substantial rebates. So the idea of cutting programs for the weakest and the most vulnerable to give tax breaks to the richest and largest corporations is totally grotesque.
Now, Senator Sanders, I agree with you, and I know you're a progressive fighter. I know that. There's no question about that, all right? I follow this stuff closely. That's my job, right? But I also know, and I'm going to be blunt with you, Democrats have been terrible at defending their ground. Terrible. So I got to be honest with you. I have no faith. I have no trust. I mean, right now, if you said to me $4 trillion, I don't think they'll get $4 trillion. But if President Obama and the Senate Democrats play the usual games they play, they'll give them, here, I'll be on the road, I'll go crazy. You ready? I'll make a prediction. $2.1 to $2.5 trillion in cuts they'll agree to.
Well, what the Democrats, Cenk, haven't done is made the case to the American people that the American people already support. There was a Wall Street Journal poll maybe 3 weeks ago. 81% of the American people thought the best way to address deficit reduction is a surtax on millionaires. They want to do away with these loopholes that allow corporations not to pay any taxes.
Well, then, Senator, no, but you got to tell me. Look, you're right. I know that. Okay, but you're right there in the Senate. What's stopping you guys? What's stopping the Senate Democrats?
Don't say you guys. Whoa, Cenk, don't say you guys. I have introduced legislation.
No, I know, and I'm giving you credit for that legislation. Right. I think it's a great piece of legislation.
You got to ask the president. It is a good question.
There you go.
You got to say, President Obama, take the case to the American people, whether we ask billionaires to pay a little bit more in taxes or we destroy the lives of millions of working families. I think we win that fight overwhelmingly. Unfortunately, as you well know, this place is dominated by lobbyists who represents the wealthy and the powerful. Now, I wish President Obama would not only enter the fray, but enter the fray on the side of working families. I think it's good public policy, morally the right thing to do. And you know what else, Cenk? It's good politics. We win that fight. Senator, unfortunately, money speaks very loudly around here.
You're 100% right about that. So final question for you. What are you going to do if the president, I got to be honest, as usual, comes out and says, oh, I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to agree with the Republicans. I'm not really going to make our case. I'm just going to say, look at me. I'm so centrist. Washington, aren't you happy? I've gone, 3/4 of in their direction. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to get? How are you going to rally progressives? I'm not putting it all on you. I know you're a great progressive. I'm saying, how do you fight back?
I'm doing my best. I've introduced the legislation, on time after time. We're trying to defend Social Security from some Democrats who actually want to cut it.
How do we get the president on our side?
Well, I think it's millions of people saying, Mr. President, we voted for you because you told us you were going to defend working Americans. Now is the time to stand up to the big money interests, ask for shared sacrifice, don't balance the budget on the backs of the elderly, the poor, and the sick. If you do that, we're going to have tremendous popular support. I would like to see a couple of 100,000 people coming here to Washington to say hello to the president, say hello to the Republicans, say, do not balance the budget on the middle class and working families of this country. When the richest people are getting richer, they have not contributed one nickel to deficit reduction. If we can rally ordinary people into this fight, we will win it.
All right, now, look, before we go, I want the audience to know, I'm not saying this because Senator Bernie Sanders is on the air with us. He's the guy who stood up and filibustered for all those hours when nobody else did. He's the one that introduced the right legislation. I want everybody to be clear on that. Senator Sanders, Godspeed to you. I hope you can represent the progressives well in this upcoming incredibly important fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.